Hi, this is Sandy here. I'm Joe's wife, and I just wanted to leave this message for Daniel because I believe he's listening in right now. And um, I know that on the few occasions that you and I, Daniel, met and had some conversations, I felt a really deep connection there, even though we were on the opposite sides of the political spectrum. The thing I appreciated about you, well, I appreciate a lot of things about you, but you were not much for idle chit chat. What you said mattered. The conversations that we had mattered. They were about things that mattered in the world. They weren't idle chit chat, which I'm not really good at, even though I try to be. I don't like it very much, and I could sense that you were the same way. And I appreciated the deepness of your thoughts, that you were very deep and very sensitive in a good way. And um, I just want to say that, I listened to the song Vincent several times since you left, and I really feel that, or I believe that I have a better understanding of what happened there. And I did want to say though that I disagree with the end where he says this world was never meant for someone as beautiful as you, because indeed the world was meant for people like you. It was meant for people like you, and you leave a void in the world because you're not here. At the end of when all is said and done, what matters to each of us, I think, is that we mattered, that our lives mattered. And I wanted you to know, Daniel, and I still want you to know that your life mattered. Who you were mattered. You matter. Wherever you are, you still matter. And I wanted to leave you with that message, and to thank you for the last memory that I have of you, which was very kind. The last time I saw you was at Clyde Henry's house, and out of the blue, you grabbed my coat and you helped me on with my coat. And at that moment, I felt a really deep connection because I realized that I had earned your respect. And that meant a lot to me. And I just wanted to say that you were missed. And anybody that can make that kind of connection with someone in the short time that we've had together, or the few times that we actually met, is very important. Very important to the world. So I'm sad that you're gone, but I wanted you to hear this. I wanted you to hear this. And I really think that you are hearing this right now. But you matter, Daniel. And you still matter. And I just wanted to leave you with this. Love you.
Hi, this is John Tilden. I'm first off for Alice and anyone that's viewing this that um, knew Dan longer and more deeply than I did. My condolences for you all. And I wanted to share just a little bit of a memory and anecdote. I've been racking my brain and I just have impressions, but I have one memory, so I'm going to share that. Dan and I overlapped for about 2 years at college in Binghamton. I'm a little bit older than he is, but I did stay in the area, so that's why I'm thinking it was about 2 years or so. But Dan and I started practicing martial arts together. There was a Shotokan, Japanese Karate Association karate club on campus, and I don't remember whether I cajoled him to getting in. We had a mutual friend as well who studied martial arts. But anyway, Dan started attending the karate club, and he just took to it like a pig in mud in terms of the enjoyment. And what I remember so deeply is that he had the ability to practice and refine in a way that I really still to this day don't have, and the enjoyment he got out of it. And so the clearest memory I have of Dan is this. It was about midnight or 12:30 one morning, and we were out on the lawn outside of the dorm, and he was practicing a kata over and over again. I think I was finishing up a slice of pizza or something, but Dan was practicing kata, and because he wanted to get it right, and it might have actually been right before one of his belt tests, and he just wanted to be perfect for that test. And I can still remember that. I remember talking with him, the mutuals. The sensei Fred was that first sensei that we had, and Fred Iannucci, and we would support Fred, and Fred supported us, and I just remember how fun it was to train with him, and how fun it was to have the conversation with him. And I was glad to hear that he didn't stop practicing martial arts. It was a part of his life, and I'm just so sad that I won't have the chance to reconnect with him, because it's been so many years since he and I had talked. Just my heart goes out to all of you, and I'm surprised at how deeply the memories affect me too. So.
Alrighty, so this phone is something that Dan stole from a college building. He really wanted one of these emergency red phones, and he practiced his plans for stealing this phone, this emergency phone, from one of the college academic buildings. He practiced in our dorm room over and over and over again, changing his clothes so that he could steal the phone. And he had a hat and change of clothes and everything. So his plan was to cut the cord, take the phone, run into a bathroom, change his clothes, and then exit out the building. And the way he stole these older phones, these older emergency phones, would be on a lever, on a cradle, on a wall. And as soon as you lifted it up, it would call the police. So he didn't want to lift it up and lift the lever to call the police. So to keep the lever down and not call the police, when he took the phone, he had a brick with a string, a half of a brick with a string. And so he looped the brick with the string onto the lever so that it would not lift up and not call the police. So he just did this quick, like, Mission Impossible Indiana Jones style swap, where he took the phone off, put the thing on, clipped the cord, ran away, changed his clothes. It was very Mission Impossible like, and that's the story of this phone. He gave it to his friend Paul, and Paul is the one who actually brought it. They would have the phone in their car, and they would pretend to be taking important calls from Mission Command or something like that. Thank you for recording that.
What year of college was that?
That would probably be approximately 19.
Like what year? Sophomore, junior?
I'm going to guess sophomore or junior year. Yeah.
Wow. What a great story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, Larry.
I had to tell that story to my son and say I don't condone this.
Right.
I mean, nowadays with as many cameras as there are, one would get into very big trouble for doing that. But it's a story that it was fun to tell.
Yeah.
So who else is on this call here? Me. This is my son, Drew. Drew, don't do this.
Hi, Drew.
Hi.
Since I'm unmuted, this is Christine. I was Dan's cousin, and my daughter, Julie.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
We're in upstate New York, but we just came down with COVID. We had plans to join you there in Ohio, but Julie tested COVID, Monday night? And
Oh,
then
no.
I tested on Tuesday, negative home test, but then Wednesday positive. So yeah, we went in for the whole PCR and have been quarantining, but sort of quarantining together, which is good. We cleared the rest of the family out. So wish we could be there with you all, but I'm glad whoever set up the Zoom that we can at least connect this way. Very
Thank
nice.
you so much for coming. We wish we could, like, send you some snacks.
It's not technology.
No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah.
We just made Julie some French fries. My mom, who's Harriet here, we were both saying, "What time are you joining?" And we realized we had just enough time. She said, "Well, there's hors d'oeuvres. We would have had some hors d'oeuvres. So can we cook some crinkle cut fries?" So
Yeah.
if you see her, yes.
It's a really nice place. There's a montage. I'm hoping it's going to be shared somehow. Montage of photos from his life.
Yeah, we've been able to see it, and John's probably going to rerun it pretty soon too for us that are on the call. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hi, John. Hi, Laura, and everybody, and whoever Confidence is, and hi, Harriet. Hello, everybody. Should we leave it the volume on so you can hear?
Yeah, just leave it. Yeah, that's fine, Larry. Just leave it the way it is.
You can.
I'll manage mutes from here.
Point it up just a little bit again, Larry, so that you had it so we could see Marla, but point it up just a little bit so it gets a little bit more to the back.
Sure.
Just maybe.
Hang on, so I'm gonna put the phone back, and then I'll.
Yeah.
I'm scared to hold this. I still feel like anybody in this position could be arrested.
Half of that.
I think like Binghamton police might still want this back.
Half of that room doesn't even know what that is.
Yeah, true. Sad but true.
Perfect.
Yep, looks good. Thanks, Larry.
Yeah, and I put it on. I put it on gallery mode so that everybody can see all the other videos of who's here.
Great.
Thank you. Good talking to everybody.
Thanks, Larry. Safe travels.
My name is Eric Paddle. I know Daniel from my college days in Binghamton, and I loved him quite a lot. So much so that on my travels around the country, coming from the Bronx, I found my way to Columbus twice. He was definitely a kind soul, and he definitely was very influential in my becoming who I have today. I definitely learned a lot from him, and how to be kind to others and how to be kind to myself. A lot of this is repeating stuff I read on the memorial website. But just know, Daniel, I'm going to miss you tremendously. I've invited your partner Alice to come to my wedding. I would have wanted you to come, and I'm honoring you by having her there because you meant that much to me. And I'm sorry you won't be there, but just know that whatever you were going through, that obviously I didn't know about, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you as much as I might have been. Whatever you were going through, you were a big part of my life, and I won't forget it at my wedding or ever. And Alice, I really look forward to your coming to the wedding. Okay. Thank you all, and thank you all for being here.
Well, oh, Alice, I'm tearing up, which I'm sure doesn't surprise you. Oh, I'm amazed at the relationship that I have had with you and Daniel through the coincidental different pathways. Daniel through men's group and you through Landmark and other things, and our conversations over the last, wow, it's been 7.5 years since I first met you and Daniel. And I'm really grateful that I had a chance to interact with Daniel and learn from him and learn of him. And I was really grateful for the opportunity to hear about your relationship from both perspectives, which was a unique role that I had. As you know, I love and support you, and I appreciated Daniel and his friendship and in men's group and all he contributed there. And well, obviously, Daniel and I had different perspectives on God and other things like that. And we discussed them, as you know. I found that I grew in the process, and I'm grateful for his contribution to my life. Thank you.
I'm Harriet. I'm Dan's aunt. And I did want to say so many things. This is very difficult for me. One thing about our whole family is that we're outdoor and nature oriented and just love everything about that. And Dan was at the forefront of that from what I'm hearing about him and his life. I knew him as a little boy, and I knew him as a young man in college, and then in the years after college. But one thing that always stayed with Dan was his enthusiasm for the things that he really loved and tried to share that with us at any given point as they were changing. And it was always so much fun to talk to him because he was so passionate about the things that he did. I remember him as a little boy out at the back of his house there when we would go to visit. And then as he grew older, he visited me in Marcellus, New York, again, which is all central New York. And at the time, I was living in a little house outside of the village. And he came out in the morning with his bathrobe and his slippers on, and you could see quite a ways from there. And he said, "This is really great." But then he found, I think it was a caterpillar in the backyard. And I noticed that you did have a caterpillar in the slides that you showed. And he just held it out and he looked at it in his hand. I've never forgotten that. And when Dad was in college, he would come and stay with us for Thanksgiving because it was far to travel to the home there. And so he'd bring his college roommates or girlfriends and things. And we always took a family hike at Thanksgiving. And he said he always loved that part of it, just going through the woods there and not getting lost, but just sharing nature. And as he grew through life, we would chat from time to time. And he shared things from his life. And when he went to Iceland, the passion, as he described that, the beauty of that, and riding the horses there. And then when he went to travel to see the solar eclipse, the total eclipse, he talked about the stillness of the birds, everything stopping. And then it's just the eclipse lesson, life coming back to that. And he had such a passionate way of describing that. And the very last talk that we had was not that long ago. And we again talked about the upcoming solar eclipse next year. And that's going to be in my area. And earlier we had planned that he would come for that time. There will be that eclipse. And I know sometime, someplace, somewhere, Dan will be there. Again. That's all I had planned to say. He was a wonderful, gentle soul. And I miss him always. Thank you.
Alice, It's Michael. I want to share with you that I had heard such, although I never knew Daniel, right? I know of Daniel through my connection with you. But in the wonderful things that I had heard people share, it really doesn't surprise me that you and Daniel were partners, because it sounds like that capacity to care and to make a difference in people's lives was there for Daniel. And I know it's there for you in the time that we spent together. So I just wanted to say that I'm thinking of you. I know it must be extremely challenging. I want you to know that I'm here for you, as is the entire President's Club, who are a lot are on this call with me, and even Joe, an alumnus of it. We've all got your back, Alice. We love you, and we're here for you in any possible way. Thanks so much.
So this is Ed and my husband, way back in about Ed, Dan and my husband, Daniel and my husband in 2000, about 2001 at our old house. We called him Dan Bringing Meat.
Bringing cow.
Bringing cow, because he would bring meat to our house. He'd always stop by and visit.
And we would grill.
And that's him with Laura Becker. And I'm sure my husband will have a lot to share. We've known Dan for a long time. I've known him probably since he was in his 20s. College friends. I kind of knew him from 12 Steps and from Rula. And we wanted to be out there today. And it just, there wasn't a way to do it, and not, I didn't want to crash and burn things that are going on here, including our relatives. I'll be frank. I'm feeling just incredibly devastated, lost, and depressed. Dan was kind of one of those backbones in my life, and he was family, even though we didn't talk very often, and I wasn't great at communicating with him, which was a disappointment for him. I'm finding it hard to take in that he's gone, because he is or was such a rock of a spirit, as I think his writing there shows. And when the world came out from under him, it was hard for him to keep bearings. It was like everything, when things went bad occasionally, it was like he had no flooring whatsoever, and he would be turned out loose into the universe, and it took him a while to come back. And I thought he was coming back this time. And so I have some guilt around that. But I want to share this in light of what his Harriet, what you shared, and what his cousins are there for. Just some good things. First of all, just what an amazing person Dan was. To Alice, I wanted to say that how much you were the partner that he was meant to have. And I'm just so sad that you were left in this place without him. And because there was nobody like you in his life, and who you were and what you are and who you mean. And I don't know the name of the friend that just went to church, but I told Dan in our last discussion that somehow we ended up talking about if he was killing himself, and I somehow, this was a week before, and he told me he was okay, but he had told me he wouldn't. He had contracted for safety with me. I didn't follow up enough, obviously, but I told him that there would be an afterlife, and that this wasn't it, and that there is an afterlife, and the part of me that's angry at Dan really wants to make it very clear to Dan that the part that he's here right now somewhere in the universe having to listen to this, and just letting him know that I was right. And the guy who went to church just now, I'm sorry I don't know your first name because I know you were dear to him, that you're right and there is a God and there is a universe. And Harriet, that you exist, and a world with you in it is a world with God in it. And a world with Dan in it is a world with a good God in it. And unfortunately, Dan is just going to have to reckon with this at this point. So I'm angry at him. And at the same time, I think Dan needed to learn the lesson that, Dan, there is something beyond all of your fears. The world is not meaningless. You have Harriet, you have your cousins, you have Rula, you have Ed, you have me. You have these people who will never, ever, ever be the same without you, but never would have been the same if you hadn't been in their lives. And you're still here. And I'm going to see a psychic just for the point of seeing you and having someone talk to me about you and you having to communicate from beyond the grave, because you were an out and out. He was such an atheist. Oh my God. It would really piss him off. Excuse me, Harriet. I hope my language isn't bothering you, but it would really piss him off if I got in touch with a psychic. So I'm getting in touch with a psychic. I'm going to drag out Dan out from the afterlife and basically just let him know that the world is not meaningless. And I guess I'm going to stop soon, but I want to just think about promises I could make to Dan about my life in light of what he shared with me. And Dan, here's my promise to you. I'm never going to live without the knowledge of what and who you are in my life. And I am going to treasure my life every day for all that I have and all that you've given me, because it's not in vain. And I love you. And I'll talk to you soon, and fuck you. Are we still recording? My husband wants to say something. Is that okay?
It is. We're still rolling. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, I've known Dan since about 2 weeks after I met Laura. And this has been hard for me too, because Dan was the guy that I would have called if one of my best friends died. Dan has always been there for me. I started making knives in 1997, and he was the first person to actually ever buy one of my knives. And I would have given it to him, but he insisted on paying me for it. He's the only person that I ever felt comfortable riding a motorcycle with. I helped him pick out his first, I guess, and only bike. And we used to ride together, and I rode with one other person since then, once. Yeah, Dan had a wonderful ability to give you his attention. And when you were talking with him, when I was talking with him, I knew that I had all of his attention. And if he couldn't give it to me, he'd tell me that, and we'd reschedule, a different time to talk. And I'm not sure he realized what a gift that was, that ability to give all your attention to someone. But it meant a lot to me. In about 2000, I don't know, 3 or 4, I was swimming in my pond, and while getting out, my hand rested upon something. And when I picked it up, it looked at the time very much like a human foot, which freaked me right out. And I dropped it, screamed like a girl, jumped out of the pond. And my first thought was, oh my God, I need to call the police. There's a body in my pond. And my second thought was, yeah, and who's the first person you start to blame when they find body parts in your pond? And my third thought was, I need to call Dan. And he really helped me that day. It turned out that bears are anatomically very similar to us. And when I looked at the foot, I did not see the claws coming out of the end of the toes. And neither did the state police officer who came and investigated. And we walked down to the pond, and his first words were, oh, shit. And I was like, that's not what I wanted to hear. And then we finally got a stick, and he was able to pick it up. And that's when we saw the claws coming out of the toes. And I knew it was all going to be okay. But Dan was the guy I called. So I'm going to miss him very much. And he'll always have a place in my heart. Very big spot. I guess that's it. Thanks.
I'm Larry, and Dan and I were roommates in college for 2.5 years, and good friends. First time I ever rode on an airplane. Dan, I would call him Dan back then. I know he's Daniel now. Daniel was the pilot of the first time I ever rode in an airplane. We were roommates and shared so much good times. And in college, we were in a few classes together. We played pranks on each other. One prank was that we celebrated Halloween together, and he had this sort of dead-looking person that he created using clothes of his own and a death mask and gloves and a hat and everything. He had this sort of dead-looking person sitting in the middle of our dorm room floor. And then after Halloween was over one day, I took all the stuffings out of this dead-looking creature person in the middle of our floor, and I put all the clothes on myself and waited for Dan to come back from dinner and stood up and scared him. He loved that prank so much that he would tell that prank so many times about how I got him. He did a great prank in a professor's classroom. He dressed up as the Grim Reaper and showed up to the final exam, a physics exam, and he handed the professor a note asking the professor to remind all the students to show their work in the problems on the physics exam. And the reason why he did that was because when he took the class about a year prior, he lost a lot of points for not showing all of his work. And so he dressed up as the Grim Reaper, and he asked the professor to tell everybody to show their work, and the professor did exactly as he asked. I don't think the professor ever knew who that mysterious person in the Grim Reaper outfit was. Daniel was a groomsman in my wedding, and we remained good friends. I found out that he had passed because I got a tattoo of the periodic table of elements. And Daniel and I we went to the same chemistry class in college, and I was so excited to tell him about my periodic table of the elements tattoo. But by then he had already passed, and when he didn't respond, and when that message did not go through, that's how I knew that something had happened, and that's how I eventually found out that he died by suicide. Biggest hugs to everybody, to Alice and her family, and to Paul and his parents, and Paul's family, and everybody in the King family, and everybody in Alice's family. Thank you so much. This is Larry Biederman from Binghamton, and I'm here with my wife Marla, my son Drew, and we're I wish we didn't have this reason to get together, but it's been a pleasure meeting everybody who came. I met a lot of people here today, and it was a beautiful way to remember Daniel. His death by suicide was his choice, and I wish he had a different solution, but he did make his choice. So we're all here to be grateful for the times that we had with Daniel. So I hope everyone is enjoying their day together here, and I hope that everyone who's listening to this podcast has some great memories of Daniel Benway. Thank you.
Hi, Dan. I'm Larry. You remember me from a while ago. This is Marla Biederman, your best college friend and roommate, Larry's wife. And I remember years ago we got together in Cleveland. We'd all gotten together for lunch after we'd done the Spencer Tunick picture of all of us. That was right. I'm looking at Larry and he's like, yes. Anyway, we're sending out our love, and we really, we have so much support for everybody, and Alice and her two kids, and we love you a lot, and love the whole family. Love you all.
Daniel, I know you know that my capacity for sadness in your passing is tapped out. My commitment to you is not to mourn your passing, but to remember the living long after your memorial, as you did for me. I was in such shock after Gary died. That hot August, I just sat in a chair in the living room. You came over one afternoon, and I was still sitting in my nightgown, and I said, "Oh, Daniel, I don't even have a bra on." And you replied, "Me either." I laughed. We laughed. You knew there was no way I could get it together, and you eased my embarrassment. In my shock in those early days, I felt I had to close the Canadian cabin, but feared I wouldn't remember the way. It felt so remote. You came over and looked up the coordinates and put them on a new satellite GPS. And you kept following up. Not in intrusive ways, but in ways I could lean on. As time went on, I started getting stronger, and you felt comfortable sharing some of the stress you perpetually operated under. We didn't physically see each other that often, especially during COVID, but there were walks to Hoover and the Park of Roses, and if Bear Burger would have survived on North High, I still remember sitting at the bar with you after your workout, me drinking a beer and you a milkshake. You texted when they laid off, and I heard the pain and resignation in your voice. You had survived 2 previous rounds, but not this one. I tried to assure you that what I had recently heard on NPR, that tech workers at your skill level would find work within 3 months. You texted a few days later and asked, "What am I supposed to do with myself?" I said, "Go work out." You thought that was a good idea. I thought that what you were going through was an adjustment period, that this time off would give you time away to possibly find a less stressful way to use your considerable intellect and talents. You texted me on January 20th to wish me a happy birthday. I asked how you were, and you didn't respond. I interpreted your silence and wrote back that we should go for a walk soon. My daughters know your name not only from men's group, but because of the many times I mentioned that you reached out. When you are in the greatest pain, you never forget those that stand with you. You were a good, loyal friend to me and Gary, and I will be that for you and Alice. Love you, Daniel.
So, I'm Elisa, and I worked at Key Factor with Daniel. We're based out of Cleveland, and obviously he lived near Columbus. So when a new project manager started on our team, she had asked, why is Daniel not in our office? And basically it was something that, wasn't a big deal. Everybody knew he lived in Columbus, but everybody else was based out of the Cleveland office. So there came a point in time that somebody decided to just kind of mess with her and say, oh, well, he can't be in the Cleveland office because he's on house arrest. And her response wasn't like, oh my, it was more of a, oh, well, I'm glad I work for a company that is comfortable with that. So then over the next, 5, 6, 7 months, up to a year, we decided that we would just kind of keep building on the mythology that Daniel couldn't come to the office because he was on house arrest. Randomly in conversation, people would weave things in. Frank would say something about, public intoxication. Oh, I think that's why Daniel's on. Oh, we're not supposed to talk about that. Or, oh, well, Daniel's not allowed close to schools, and just random little things like that. And then when we were supposed to have team get-togethers, we would always make a big deal about how, oh, well, Daniel has to get permission to come up to Cleveland. And it turned into this whole mythology, and to this day there's still new people on the team who think that we had a guy that was on house arrest. And the best part is the story's gonna last forever and continue because the lab that he built, the Benway lab, which is what everybody calls it, the Benway lab is still in use, still used by a lot of different people. So people who have never met Daniel and now never ever will, which is an utter shame, know his name. And when it comes up, we tell them the tale of Daniel's house arrest. And the best part is he loved that story so much and messing with people so much that he tried to buy an ankle bracelet online. Turns out they're really, really hard to find, and if you do find one, they're like $500. So we never did get him an ankle bracelet, but that was Daniel in a nutshell. We loved him dearly, and we miss him every single day, and every day I think of something that I want to tell him about, and he's not there, so I can't send him a message. But we love him, we miss him, and I miss his disturbed sense of humor more than anything.